Thank you for being here. I plan to speak about 15 minutes, and then I don't want your questions in the sense of, do you have questions? I would like to hear your thoughts, because I don't know everything about that. I was at the JS Unconf 2 weeks ago and spoke about a project that I did, the Android Bootcamp, to add diversity to our mobile team. And I realized that at the JS Unconf, a lot of people approached me and asked me questions about speaking with candidates. And so, developers, obviously. And so I sat down on the second day to draft a lightning talk, a 5-minute one, about this topic, because I had the feeling that there was interest. And now I kind of extended this lightning talk to a 15-minute talk and to a discussion with you. So, me and tech. Me and the laptop is a really, really, really bad thing. So now that you have seen all the slides, you are all good, and I can stop talking. Thanks, and it's done. Oh my God, and now it goes backwards. What do I do here? Are you done? Yes. So what about exit? Okay. So this happens when old women who have no clue work with the laptop. I leave it like this. This looks less scary. This is good. We have one question in common when speaking with candidates. No matter how different our position is, no matter how, hey guys, come down. Seriously, I can't see you. I want to interact with you. So even though we all have different backgrounds, we come from different companies, we might look for different things in candidates. It might be front and back end developers or whatever. There's one question that we do have in common when we speak to a candidate. We would like to know, we would like to be able to look into the future and know what kind of impact this person will have when working with us. And we want to assess this. And of course, there are technical interviews, and there will be pair programming or whatever, but still, there will be a lot of interviews where you will use a tool to assess if somebody will have, or what type of impact this person will have. That is communication. And communication is fragile. Communication, there's lots of things that interact and interfere with communication, and that's why I would like to speak with you about all these things that can interfere, because what I want you to be able to is to actually hear what somebody is saying, and also to be able to speak in a way to a person that this person can hear what you are saying. And this list is just a number of examples that interfere with communication, especially in a cross-cultural setting. There's for sure more. I picked a few. So what we know is that the interview setting can be very intimidating depending on how it is. So there is not the ideal interview setting. It's just important that maybe your very, very casual office space that you love because it has a slide, because it has like a ping pong room, because you can come in PJ pants or whatever, can be very intimidating to a person who comes from a very formal setting. And this can just make this person feeling extremely uncomfortable. And this feeling of being extremely uncomfortable can interfere how this person will communicate with you while you speak with them. Another aspect that can heavily interfere with communication is demographics. And again, there is no perfect way to work around it. I think it's most about awareness. Maybe the interviewer is in their early 20s and female, and maybe the candidate is in his late 50s or 40s, and maybe this candidate comes from a very hierarchical culture. This is a problem, or this is a situation where and this setting will interfere with communication. It could be also the other way around. It could be a person who interviews who is older and maybe male, and the candidate could be younger. So I think what is important here is just to be aware that this has an impact on the way how people communicate with each other. I also think that body language, in all levels of body language, are important. So nodding does not mean in all cultures that you agree. It can mean that you disagree and the opposite. So you might read somebody's positive nodding as, oh, they don't agree with me, and you think, oh, what's wrong? Or the opposite. So just be aware of that. Sitting cross-legged, which is no problem in Western culture, especially in a casual setting, but even in a not-so-casual setting, it's okay to sit cross-legged, can be very offending in other cultures. How you move your arms. So there's lots of cultures where it's okay to gesture. In some cultures, it's very rude to gesture. And same is with eye contact. In Canada, we believe in eye contact, and I do think that's at least my experience here in Germany is eye contact is fine. We're looking for that. It's actually weird if a person cannot hold eye contact. Eye contact in some cultures can be very offending, and you just don't do it because you intimidate a person doing that. And same is for distance. How much distance do you hold to a person? And what I realized when I, like for the last couple of days being here in Germany, is that when I walk down a sidewalk and there's a person coming in my direction, they don't move, not a single bit. And I actually know that. But this feels so weird. I'm like, because in Canada, just imagine a person coming kind of my height, both would step by side, on both sides, that's what you do, and then you continue. And here, it's like, I always step aside because I'm like, oh my, I might touch them. Because this is what happens here, you bump into somebody and nobody even cares about that. You, like in Canada, you would add 5 times sorry. And, what I also realized being here in Germany, that I was with my friend walking down the Alster yesterday, so there were lots of people. And one thing that happens when you walk down the side that people don't step aside is that they do this. So like, I felt like a piece of meat being checked. This was really weird, and I know that's this was a little stronger than they do it, but seriously, this quick check, like from top to bottom and up again. And this felt so offending to me, and I was surprised because I am from here, I'm used to it, and it's just like more an observation about myself and how things shift a little bit. Just 2 observations for distance and how you approach people. So these were more like outside factors, but what is, how is it if you speak about certain topics that usually at some point come up in interview processes? I do think that a very big question is, where does the private person start and where does the professional person end? And that's very, very different in cultures. There's lots of cultures where everything that is not strict and directly related to the job is private. And you do not speak about it, and you don't ask about it, and not at all. Here, it's kind of, there's an overlap. And we just don't think about it, it's normal. But if these things come up and certain decisions might be, for example, have a private background, and we ask about this, and so we understand better. But people sometimes can just not speak about it. I do think that it's also true for life transitions. So if we have a resume or somebody speaks about shifts in their life, in their career, it's a good thing to understand why. So because, for example, you look at a CV and you see that a person has changed their job every year and you want to understand why. This can be very hard for a person to answer from a culture where you don't speak about private things in a professional setting. Also speaking about achievements, what did you do at your job? can be very different from culture to culture. In certain cultures you can speak about I did this and I achieved that. And in other cultures, you can only speak about we, the team. You cannot speak about I. Speaking about I can be rude, can be, it's just like if you do it, everybody knows you're an asshole. And who wants to be an asshole? So in this case, it might be very hard for you to understand what the person actually did. And that's what you want to understand, because usually what people did in the past is a good predictor for what they will do in the future. Just be aware that somebody who always speaks in we hasn't done anything. Maybe they are just not able to tell you. I also think that concept of choice is something that in Western society is very valued and can be a trap to run into. So we might want to understand why somebody decided to study computer science and they might tell you, hey, yeah, when I was 7, I got my first laptop and I did this and that and I've always coded. And you think, yay. Another person might answer, yeah, my dad told me to. And you're saying, what? So you studied that because your dad told you to? And this is, in a certain way, weird for our eyes to hear that. But in certain cultures, you just do what your family decides. And this is not better or worse than somebody who just always had a passion for something, and that's why they decided to do that. And just to be able to reflect on that. There's one other aspect that is touched in a lot of interview processes. This is speaking about money, about financial expectations. And in some cultures you can speak about money, in other cultures you cannot speak about money. And so a person might not be able to answer. A person might ask for double. And you think, what is their level of self-awareness? They are seriously asking for that much money, holy shit. But maybe they come from a culture where you just negotiate the money down to half. And this is where you start. Maybe they ask for an amount that sounds ridiculously low to you because it's just important to be very humble and not ask for what you're worth, because it would be very impolite to do that. So just think about that. And whenever I speak with colleagues about that, one thing comes up. If all these things make a person so uncomfortable, would they actually ever be happy working for our company? Would that be a good fit? Would that be a good decision for them to work here? I would say yes. Because people are able to adapt. I mean, that's why we are not extinct, because we can adapt. And even Stockholm Syndrome is all about adaptation. And I do think that it's really important that we are okay being uncomfortable while a person is uncomfortable and adapting. Because this person will add the diversity to your team that you don't have at the moment. And that will empower your team to build a product that will be attractive to a broader group and not only to the people who are like you. So I would like to encourage you to be uncomfortable while other people are uncomfortable adapting. And that's like all I have to say, and I would love to hear your 15 minutes, you see? Still German. I would love to hear your thoughts on that, your input, and would love to use the second 15 minutes for discussion. And I would love to encourage everybody who's hiding there, Kerstin, to come down so that I can see you and you're not hiding behind your red backpack. So that we can interact. Yeah?
I can actually start it off. So you mentioned the difference between especially Western cultures where you check for the passion of someone going into a route.
Yeah.
Like deciding to study computer science versus other cultures where it's very normal to say, I studied this because of my parents. Mm-hmm. This is something we encountered at study.eu where the question was, if there's a student inquiring about a study program, can we somehow check how determined they are to study that? And one thing that we looked at is, can you, for instance, there is a student and he or she wants to study computer science, but also inquires about business, law, and medicine. Does that mean that person is not determined? And after speaking to several recruiting managers at universities, turns out You have other cultures where someone may be more interested in art history, but the parents say, hey, if we have to fund you to go to Europe to study, you have to apply to business or law programs at the very least. So it turned out that someone asking about multiple disciplines is a very bad predictor of that person ending up in any one of those programs. So we decided not to include that in any sort of estimation of determination, which ties into what you said, that someone goes and studies something because their parents told them.
Yeah, I also think that passion is a concept that, for example, if it comes to age diversity, I feel the more complex my life is, the less passion I have on all levels. And usually the older you get, the more complex your life is. And I don't think that you need to have, but this is my Julia opinion, that you need to be super, super, super passionate about everything right away, full energy to have impact. I also do believe that you can develop passion. This is something you have never thought about, and at the beginning you're just like interested a little bit. And the more you learn about something, about an opportunity, you might be able to develop passion. I don't think that, usually if I observe at me that something I've never heard about is there, and I'm super passionate right away, I'm like at the highest passion level up ever, where can I go? Only downwards. Can only be less. So usually I find a little less passion great because then it can become more. But this is me, Julia. My opinion on that. I would love to have questions and thoughts. Yeah?
Yeah, so what I understood is that you think it's always possible to develop people, to gain passion and to integrate into teams and to adapt. Are there any indicators that you see where you say, okay, that's gonna be difficult with this person, or if these cases are true, it will be hard to motivate people or to integrate them in teams?
So the hard thing for me to answer this question is that I'm not a recruiter but a recruiting researcher. I never do interviews.
Okay.
I was a social worker in my first life. I'm kind of done doing interviews and speaking to people. No, not really. But I do think this whole area is not about black and white. And if somebody can't tell you what they did, it can be an indicator that they just cannot speak about individual achievements because of cultural reasons. But it can also mean that they have never done anything that had any impact. So it's not that they can't do it mean that this is because of this one thing. So there is no easy answer to that. I do think it's important to have the awareness that it could mean this, so that maybe your next question is a different one. And also that when you hear it, you don't shut down and say, okay, I know what this person is, nothing to, and you already make your decision. But that you, at this point, step back and say, okay, I have heard this, and it can mean this or that, and I now look closer into that. And that you don't early make a decision what it might mean, but that you just, try to hear. And,
So what is then that you actually base your decision on? So basically the things that you say here are mainly the things that people manage to make their decisions upon, and you say, well, think about them twice. So what do you then actually make your decision on?
So we have so-called predictors of success that we have identified in our company that we are looking for. And these, I do think that each company has predictors of success and that they are different from company to company because what you're looking for is different. So I don't think that there's a single answer to that. It's just like when you know what your predictors of success are, you listen to people talking, all these things can come in. And I want you to be aware that they can mean this or that, and that you ask a second or a third question to find out what they mean. That's kind of the answer that I can give to that. Does it help?
Would you like to share one or two of those?
I've done a lot in my life, and one thing that I did is I'm a criminologist, and I've done a lot of things. Check me out on LinkedIn. I'm the unstable person. Like career-wise, not really. And I did risk assessments for cases of harassment. So you want to know if somebody who harasses somebody is actually dangerous or not. And one big thing, not surprisingly, is past risk. So did somebody was ever physically violent in the past is a very big predictor to will they be in the future. So whatever people did in the past is your best indicator and best guess for what they will do in the future. So looking for what they did in the past, and not only on like a technical level, but more on how much did they thrive? Were they constant learners? Were they like on the soft skill level? This will tell you a lot about the future. And
okay, but you just said before that looking at the past might be the wrong indicator.
no, I said how people communicate about the past might be difficult. I didn't say looking at the past is difficult. I said people can have, based on their different cultural backgrounds, speak differently about their past. It doesn't say, so for example, you want to speak about past achievements. And one person might come from a culture where it's important to highlight your achievements, where it's maybe even good to make the fish that you just got out of the water and you tell your friends about 1/2 meter bigger than it actually was, because that's the way you do it. And in other cultures, you might say that this fish was really small because bragging is really bad. And it's not, they both tell you the same story. And the people from the culture where everybody makes the fish 1/2 meter bigger will know that this fish was actually 1/2 meter smaller. They know that because it's cultural common knowledge. As well as people in the other culture where everybody shrinks the fish know that actually the fish was bigger. And that's just what you need to be aware of, how people speak about their past. Of course, you need to look at the past. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the important thing is when usually you get a CV before, and I think the important thing is to make yourself aware that you could run into these problems if, or how let's say how on a scale how much you have to get yourself into the mindset of that you might run into intercultural problems if you have like I don't know a group of male white engineers and another male white engineer from Germany applies, then maybe your mindset can be a little bit different going into the interview than if you get an application from a totally different part of the world. And I think that you just have to be aware that you have to be much more careful when talking to this person.
Yeah, exactly. So just knowing, for example, that pair programming in India is hardly known. So people know about it theoretically, and then they can check out YouTube tutorials, but it's nothing they commonly do. So if you don't do something commonly, like if you just are not used to it, you will never be good. You can check out how you dance waltz on YouTube, but you can't dance waltz after that. Yeah.
Just one question. It's getting very, very fuzzy because, for example, first of all, how can you give someone a chance? Because if you have no background, for example, the people after the university or before the university after high school, how could you kind of hire such a people if you are unable to do any relevant background check because there is nothing like this one thing. And another thing, how to recognize whether the person is actually adapted or not. Because, for example, if I'm from the culture where something expected or there is some level of behavior, but I'm going to apply for a company which is like work completely different, how to recognize whether the person is actually adjusting, for example, the fish. If I will be from the culture where we are going to make the fish smaller, and I'm going to apply for a company where they are going to make the fish larger. How to recognize whether the person is actually adjusting the fish size to my expectation or not? You know, because we can get to the situation where I'm expecting that they are speaking about the smaller fish and they are speaking actually about the larger fish. So
yeah, maybe you can compare the fish to something so that you don't speak about centimeters. I think, so this was a couple of questions that you had. So one was, how can you actually vet people who are right off university, who have no professional experience, and so So I think a lot of people who are in university have experience because they do internships, so it's not that they have nothing. And I do think you have this thing like Werkstudent here in Germany, so I'm not sure if it's true, but of course you can say there are people who cannot really communicate what they can do through our regular channels, how we find talent. And I try to experiment with this. So one thing that I did is the Android Bootcamp, which was an initiative in Ottawa for our company, where we invited recent immigrants who are software developers to attend or to apply for a cost-free 2.5-day Android Bootcamp. So we could accompany a group for 2.5 days, seeing how they learned, seeing how they did, and we offered the best of them job interviews after. And these were people who had a hard time to work in their profession when arriving in Canada, to get their first real job that was not Uber driving, or setting up a website for a community center. So you can try to build doors where people can actually more show their work or show their growth. I have a second initiative I don't mention here, but we can maybe talk after about it. I also think that how you write an application or a CV is I know it's very different from culture to culture. So I do think have a broader perspective on it. You will see if somebody is a baker or a fisher. And if you see they are a baker and you're looking for a baker, and they have about that many years of experience, invite them and chat with them. Because you don't want to hire the person who's best in using keywords and writing the nicest CV. You want to hire the person who's doing the job. That was the question.
My thoughts are, all you have to find out if whether is this person you want to hire, is it open-minded? And if the person is open-minded, you find a way to get along.
Yeah, open-mindedness is, I think, a very important thing. Yeah, I do agree on that. Yeah.
Yeah, the last question, by the way.
Say it again?
Should be the last question.
Okay, what we do is we collect your questions, and then I answer all of them, or your thoughts.
Okay. So, I have a training recruiter. He can recognize all those cultural differences. We hire the person, and then the person joins the team. Do you train the team to recognize the cultural differences so that the person can adapt to the team, or the team adapt to the person, or this is like a struggle?
Okay.
Person won't know already in the team.
Okay. A question?
Going back to this second question, how do you have an indicator to identify the speed of adjustment? I mean, everybody is adaptable, but there are different speeds of
Yes.
adaptation, and you need to get them there quickly.
Yes. Okay. And you had a question too.
Me?
Yes.
It was more of a thought going into the same direction. Like from listening to you, I think that like successful adaptation is probably like one of the most important predictors for somebody to be a good candidate. And for me, a good concept to think about that is when looking at a candidate is to not look at like what they are currently doing or at what skill level, but kind of like the distance traveled. Like, you know, where are they coming from? Where are they now? Like how much, if they've been doing the same thing for a long time, then they haven't really adapted a lot. But if they started here and they got somewhere, then it's a good indicator for that they can adapt and they're open-minded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't it lead to a high fluctuation if we don't take, is the candidate feeling comfortable currently that much into account when it comes to is he suitable for the job? Because then he will be in the job, we don't know how well he's able to adapt or the team is able to adapt. Isn't there a high chance that he will leave soon after again?
So I think that ties into your question. So your question is about onboarding. I don't do onboarding. It's a different team that is doing that. But you need to be aware of cross-cultural differences when onboarding. You need to be aware of what a person needs and address that. So we do that, and I think it's important to do that. And if you do that, a person will more likely stay and not leave. Can you assess adaptation? and can you assess how quickly a person will adapt? I think you can get an idea based on what you said, but there are tools where you can reflect adaptation process on a person. So there's, and I forgot how it's called, there's the wheel of cross-cultural adaptation, and it's an assessment tool where you ask questions, and it's like cut in 4 areas, and then you can see how much you have adapted in these 4 areas and how quickly you can adapt. I wouldn't use this to assess if a person is able to quickly adapt, but I would use this maybe, for example, in onboarding and in accompanying a person in their journey to adapt, to help them to self-reflect and to get awareness on their adaptation process, because we all are built to adapt. Done?
Any closing words? Or?
Yeah, done.